Let me ask you a question that might be a little uncomfortable. How many hours have you spent this week planning things you've never done? How many spreadsheets have you created? How many productivity apps have you downloaded? How many times have you said, "I'll start next week"? There's a frightening statistic that very few people talk about. Studies show that 92% of people who make detailed New Year's resolutions abandon those plans before February. Not because the plans were bad, but because spending time planning gives the illusion of progress without requiring the discomfort of real action. There's a stark difference between preparation and disguised procrastination. And most people go through life without realizing they're on the wrong side of that line. The Japanese have a proverb for that. It's called Anzuru yori umuga yasushi. Literally, it means, giving birth is easier than worrying about it. More directly translated, doing is easier than being anxious about doing it. It seems simple, right? But that sentence contains a truth that can destroy years of self-sabotage in seconds, because it reveals something you probably already know deep down, but have never admitted. You're not planning, you're running away. And today I'm going to tell you the story of a guy named Isaac, an American addicted to productivity who never produced anything, an eternal planner who had the perfect plan for everything, but no courage to execute anything. Until the day he learned this Japanese philosophy in the most painful way possible. Chapter 1. The Productivity Addict Who Never Produced Anything. Isaac was 32 years old and had an enviable collection, 47 books on productivity, several online courses on habits, various time management apps installed on his cell phone, and exactly 0 concrete results in life. He wasn't lazy, far from it. Isaac woke up at 5:30 a.m. every day. He kept a bullet journal. He had a Google Sheet spreadsheet with color codes to categorize each hour of the day. He knew the Pomodoro technique and various productivity methods and systems. The problem, he never did anything, he only planned. Isaac worked at a tech startup, position junior data analyst, salary average, growth prospects none, because everyone who joined the company with him had already been promoted. Except him. It wasn't a lack of ability, it was over-preparedness. When a position for a team leader opened up, Isaac said, "I'll apply to, but first I need to take that leadership course I bought 6 months ago and finish that book on management and create a better portfolio. I'll apply next week." Next week became next month. Next month became the next time a position opens up. The position was filled by a guy who had half his experience, but who simply raised his hand and said, "I want it." Isaac's finances, a mess. Because he planned too much and executed too little. He wanted to invest. He had a beautiful spreadsheet with asset allocation, quarterly rebalancing, and compound interest calculations for the next 30 years. But he never opened an account with the brokerage firm. Because first he needed to read 3 more books on investing and watch that fundamental analysis course and perfectly understand all the risks. Meanwhile, his money sat idle in his checking account, losing value to inflation, while he prepared himself. His love life? Same old story. Isaac wanted to meet someone. I had written a mental script of what the perfect conversation would go like, but I never took the initiative to start a conversation because his profile picture wasn't perfect and his bio needed rewriting, and he needed to lose another 3 kilos before we could even begin. "I'll start in 2 months, he told himself. 2 months turned into 8, 8 turned into 2 years, and Isaac remained alone, planning the perfect relationship that would never happen. Chapter 2. The Illusion of Control. One Sunday evening, Isaac sat at the kitchen table in his apartment, laptop open, 3 notebooks beside him, highlighters in 5 different colors, arranged by order of importance. He was creating the plan, the ultimate plan, the system of habits that would finally change his life. Monday, wake up at 5 a.m., meditate for 20 minutes, read 30 pages, go to the gym for 1 hour, have a healthy breakfast, work focused from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. with 50-minute Pomodoro blocks and 10-minute breaks. The spreadsheet had 47 rows, every hour of the day mapped out, every activity optimized, every transition calculated. He had even included travel time between activities because he had read in a book that this was important. When he finished, it was already midnight. He looked at the plan and felt that sensation, satisfaction. That same feeling you get when you finish organizing your study desk, but don't study anything. When you clean your whole room, but don't start the important work. The illusion of progress. Isaac went to sleep happy. Tomorrow will be different, he thought. For the 17th time that year, Monday, 5 a.m., the alarm clock rang. Isaac woke up, looked at the plan and thought, wait a minute, if I meditate from 5:05 a.m. to 5:25 a.m. and I need to be ready to read at 5:30 a.m., I won't have time to have coffee beforehand. That doesn't make sense. I need to adjust. He picked up his notebook. He redid his schedule. He moved the meditation to after coffee, but then the reading would be too close to the gym and his head would be tired. At 7 a.m., Isaac was still adjusting the plan. He hadn't meditated, he hadn't read, he hadn't gone to the gym. He had only replanned. This scene repeated itself every day that week, and the following week, and for the entire month. Isaac couldn't get started because the plan was never perfect. There was always a detail that could be improved, a variable he hadn't considered, a risk that needed to be mitigated before beginning. And do you know what the truth was that he didn't want to admit? He was afraid. Afraid of doing it wrong, afraid of failing, afraid of discovering that he wasn't as capable as he thought he was. Because while you're planning, you can still be perfect. The plan is always perfect. It's in the execution that imperfection appears. And Isaac preferred the illusion of perfection on paper to the reality of imperfection in practice. Chapter 3. The Project That Never Started. Isaac had a dream. A side project he had been developing for 3 years, creating an online course teaching data analysis to beginners. He had expertise. He had been working in this field for 8 years. He knew all the tools, all the techniques, all the mistakes that beginners made. He could genuinely help thousands of people. But the course didn't exist, because Isaac was trapped in the eternal plan. First, he spent 6 months researching platforms. Udemy, Teachable, Hotmart. Each had advantages and disadvantages. He created a comparison spreadsheet with 23 criteria. He still hadn't decided. Then he spent 4 months defining the perfect curriculum. How many modules? How many classes per module? What was the ideal order for presenting the concepts? He redid the outline 14 times. Then he spent 3 months choosing equipment. Which microphone, which camera, which editing software. He watched several reviews on YouTube. He bought and returned 2 microphones because they weren't exactly what he needed. 3 years have passed, 0 recorded lessons, 0 students impacted, 0 revenue generated. But Isaac had 127 pages of planning. He had schedules, scripts, storyboards, marketing strategies. He had everything, except a course. One day, a colleague of his named Marcus launched a course on the same topic. Marcus's course was objectively worse than what Isaac had planned to do. Bad audio, simple slides, basic explanations. But do you know how many people signed up in the first month? 340. Do you know how much Marcus earned? $11,900 in the first month. Isaac saw this and felt something horrible, envy mixed with regret, because he knew he could have done better. He could have helped more people. He could have created something of higher quality. But Marcus had done it, and he hadn't. Because Marcus started with a $40 a microphone and a 6-lesson course. Imperfect, incomplete, but it was done. While Isaac waited for the perfect moment that would never come. That night, Isaac opened his course planning document, 127 pages, 3 years of work, and he pressed delete because he wanted to start over, the right way, with more planning, more research, more preparation. He hadn't learned anything. Chapter 4. The Trip That Changed Everything. 3 months later, Isaac's company sent him to an event in Tokyo, a technology conference with clients and partners from Asia, 5 days in Japan. Isaac had never left the United States before. He was excited, but of course he needed to plan everything perfectly. He made a detailed itinerary for each day, where to eat, what to visit, how much time to spend in each place, which subway line to take. He bought 3 travel guides. He downloaded 7 translation apps. On the second day of the trip, the company organized an internal lecture at the Japanese office. The topic, execution culture versus planning culture. The speaker was Takashi Nakamura, the company's operations director in Asia. A man of about 60 years old, calm demeanor, speaking slowly. Takashi began the presentation with a question. How many of you here have a project that you've been planning for more than 6 months, but haven't started yet? Isaac looked around. Some hands were raised. He didn't raise his. Shame. Let me tell you a story, Takashi said. When I was 25, I worked at a car factory in Osaka. I wanted to be promoted to supervisor, but I felt I wasn't ready. I needed more experience, more knowledge, more preparation. One day, my mentor called me into his office and said, "Anzuru yori ga yasushi." Do you know what that means? No one answered. It means giving birth is easier than worrying about it, or more directly, doing it is easier than being anxious about doing it. My mentor explained to me, a pregnant woman can spend 9 months worrying about childbirth, about the pain, the complications, everything that could go wrong. And her anxiety is real, it's valid. But when the time comes for delivery, she simply does it. And often the actual experience is less frightening than those 9 months of worry. Isaac felt a tightening in his chest, as if those words had been written specifically for him. Takashi continued, "The same applies to anything in life. You can spend months planning, worrying, anticipating problems, and that worry will consume more energy than the action itself, because action has an end. Worry doesn't. In Japanese culture, we value preparation, but there's a difference between useful preparation and disguised procrastination. Useful preparation brings you closer to action. Disguised procrastination keeps you away." Chapter 5. The Question That Broke Isaac. After the lecture, there was a networking cocktail party. Isaac went straight to speak with Takashi. He needed to know more. "Mr. Nakamura, I think I'm exactly the type of person you described. I plan too much and execute too little. How do I change that?" Takashi gave a small smile. "Tell me something, Isaac. What project are you planning right now?" I want to create an online course. I've been working on it for 3 years now." 3 years of planning. How many classes have you recorded? None. Why? Isaac began listing the reasons. Equipment, curriculum, platform, marketing. He had an answer for everything. Takashi interrupted him. "Those aren't reasons. They're excuses. Let me ask you another question. If you died tomorrow, would you regret not having created this course?" Isaac stopped. The question was too brutal to answer with a lie. "Yes, I would deeply regret it." "So why are you acting like you have all the time in the world?" Silence. "Isaac, I'm going to give you a challenge. When you get back to the United States, you're going to record a lesson. Just one lesson. It doesn't even have to be the first one in the course. It can be any one. Just with your cell phone. No perfect script. No professional editing. Just you talking about a topic you're an expert on for 10 minutes, and you're going to post it somewhere. YouTube, LinkedIn, anywhere. Do you accept? But what if it goes wrong? It's going to be bad. It's definitely going to be bad. The first version of anything is always bad. But you know what's worse than a bad first version? No version at all." That hit Isaac like a punch to the gut, because he realized he'd spent 3 years protecting his ego, protecting the image that he could do something perfect, if he wanted to, but never testing whether that was true. Takashi repeated, "The anxiety of doing is always worse than the doing itself. Always. So stop worrying and start doing, even if it's imperfect, even if it's scary. Just do it." Chapter 6. The Return Home. Isaac returned to the United States a different man, not transformed, but troubled. Those words from Takashi had planted something in him that wouldn't stop growing, discomfort with his own paralysis. On the flight back, he wrote on a piece of paper, 1 class, 10 minutes, cell phone, no excuses. When he got home, it was Saturday morning. He looked at the paper. He felt the urge to plan, to create a script, to research recording techniques, to wait until he had the perfect setup. But then he remembered, doing is easier than worrying. He picked up his cell phone. He opened the camera. He placed it on an improvised stand made of books. He pressed the record button, and it froze. He stared at the camera for 30 seconds without saying anything. Then he hung up. "It's not ready, I need a script." Then he stopped. He took a deep breath. He remembered Takashi saying, "The first version is always bad." He pressed record again, and he started talking, no script, no perfection. Just him explaining a data analysis concept he taught to interns at work. He stuttered. He forgot words. He repeated some verbal tics about 8 times. He recorded 14 minutes instead of 10. But he finished. "When I saw the result, I wanted to delete it. It was objectively bad. Ambient audio with street noise, horrible lighting, confusing explanation in some parts, but he had promised, to Takashi, to himself." He posted it on YouTube as an unlisted video. He shared it on LinkedIn with a simple caption, "First lesson of a course I'm creating, imperfect but real." And he went to sleep with a strange feeling. It wasn't pride, it was relief. Relief at finally having done something instead of just planning. Chapter 7. The answer he didn't expect. On Monday morning, Isaac woke up and checked LinkedIn. 47 likes on the post, 12 comments. He read the comments expecting criticism, expecting someone to point out all the mistakes, the poor quality, the lack of professionalism. But that's not what he found. One comment read, "Dude, thanks. I've been trying to understand this concept for weeks, and you explained it in 10 minutes better than any tutorial I found. Make more." Another comment, "The explanation isn't perfect, but it's honest. And that's exactly what I need. Real content from someone who works with this every day." Another comment, "Finally someone who doesn't just sell courses, they just teach. Thank you." Isaac read each comment 3 times. He had spent 3 years waiting for the perfect moment to help people, and in 14 minutes of imperfect video, he had already helped more people than in 3 years of planning. But the comment that really moved him was from a woman. She said, "I work in marketing, but I want to migrate to data. I watch a lot of content about it, but it all seems very polished, very professional, very distant. Your video made me feel that it's possible, that I don't need to be perfect to start. Thank you for that." Isaac closed his laptop. He felt he could make a real impact on people's lives. That night he recorded another lesson, this time with a little more preparation, but without the paralyzing perfectionism. He recorded, edited minimally, posted, and so it was. 1 lesson a week. Nothing perfect, nothing grand, just consistent. In 3 months, Isaac had published 12 lessons, over 2,000 total views, 340 subscribers to the channel, and 23 people messaged him asking if he was going to turn it into a full course. He realized something revolutionary. Success didn't come from perfection, it came from consistency. And consistency was only possible when you stopped planning and started doing. Chapter 8. The Invisible Transformation. But the real change wasn't in the course, it was in Isaac. Because when he learned Anzuru yori yasushi with the course, he began to apply it to all areas of life. The leadership position he always wanted? He applied without expecting to be completely ready. In the interview, he was honest. "I don't know everything, but I know enough to learn the rest by doing." He was promoted. The investments he had been planning for 2 years. He opened an account with a brokerage firm, deposited $500, and started with the basics. Without the perfect allocation, without the ideal portfolio. He just started. 4 months later, he was already learning more by doing than he had learned in 2 years of reading. His love life. He downloaded an app, uploaded normal, not perfect photos, wrote an honest, not calculated bio, and got his first match. He met a woman. The first date was awkward, the second was better, the third was great. 6 months later, they were dating. Isaac began to notice a pattern. Every time he replaced overplanning with imperfect action, he progressed faster. Not because the action was perfect, but because the action generated feedback. And feedback is the only thing that truly teaches you. You can plan a course for 3 years, but you'll only find out if the content works when you put it in front of real people. You can plan investments for months, but you'll only understand volatility when you see your real money going up and down. You can plan ideal relationships, but you'll only learn to love when you're vulnerable with someone real. Planning gives you the illusion of control, Action gives you real learning. Chapter 9. The project that finally came to be. A year after his trip to Japan, Isaac had published 52 lessons, the complete course. It wasn't perfect. Some videos had better audio than others. Some explanations were clearer, but it was complete. He put the course on a platform. He charged 14 hours a fair price, and it sold. In the first month, 89 people bought it. Revenue, $4,961. It was proof that he could create something people wanted. More importantly, he had 89 people who paid for his knowledge. 89 people he was impacting. 89 lives that were a little bit better because he had stopped planning and started doing. But the real transformation was internal, because Isaac was no longer the guy who planned perfectly and never executed. He had become the guy who started imperfectly and improved by doing. And do you know when Isaac realized he had truly changed? It was when a new intern at work asked, "Isaac, I want to create online content like you. Where do I start?" Isaac could have given the old answer. Research equipment, define the niche, create the perfect resume, study marketing, prepare everything before starting. But he didn't. He said, grab your phone, record a 5-minute video explaining something you know and post it. Don't think too much, just do it. But I don't have a script. I don't have the equipment. Exactly. You don't need to. Doing is easier than worrying about doing, so stop worrying and just do it. The intern looked at him confused, but he did it. That same day he posted his first video. Bad, yes, but it was done. Isaac saw that and smiled, because he had just given someone else the same lesson Takashi had given him, permission to be imperfect. A University of Chicago study on procrastination revealed something fascinating. Anticipatory anxiety about a task is always disproportionately greater than the actual discomfort of performing the task. In 94% of the cases studied, participants reported that doing the task was significantly less stressful than the period of worry that preceded the action. Another study, conducted by Stanford on paralyzing perfectionism, found people who consider themselves perfectionists are 3.2 times more likely to never start important projects compared to people who accept imperfection. Paradoxically, perfectionists produce less quality work because they never get past the planning stage. A neuroscientist from the University of London who studies decision-making explained, the human brain has a cognitive bias called preparation illusion. When we plan something, we activate the same neural circuits that we activate when we execute it. This creates the feeling that we have already made progress, when in fact we haven't done anything yet. That's why planning is so addictive and so unproductive at the same time. But there's one thing nobody tells you about Anzuru yori yasushi, which I need to reveal now. Because this philosophy isn't just about doing instead of planning. It's deeper than that. When Takashi taught this to Isaac, he left out a crucial part. Because Isaac wasn't ready to hear it yet, but now you are. Complete philosophy includes something called adaptive kaizen. The idea that you don't improve by planning the perfect version. You improve by making version 1.0, receiving feedback, and going to version 1.1, then 1.2, and then 2.0. Isaac discovered this without realizing it. His first video was version 1.0, horrible, but it generated feedback. The second was 1.1, still bad, but a little better. The 10th was 2.0, decent. The 50th was 5.0, genuinely good. But none of this would have existed if he hadn't started with the awful version. And here's the insight that can change your life. You can never plan your path to excellence. You can only act on your path to it, because excellence isn't a destination you map out. It's a direction you walk. Isaac understood this late, but he understood. And by the end of his second year, his course had 15,000 students. Annual revenue, $387,000. He quit his job because he had proven something fundamental. Imperfect action generates real results. Perfect planning generates 0 results. Chapter 10. The Legacy of a First Step. 3 years after his trip to Japan, Isaac returned to Tokyo, this time as a guest speaker at a conference. The topic? From Paralysis to Progress. How to overcome the addiction to planning. The night before the lecture, he had dinner with Takashi, the man who had planted the seed that changed everything. "Takashi-san, I never properly thanked you for what you did for me that day." Takashi smiled. "I didn't do anything. I just gave you permission to do what you already knew you needed to do." "But how did you know I was that kind of person, the planning addict?" "Because that's exactly how I was at 25. I spent months planning each project. I was afraid to start because I was afraid of failing, until my mentor taught me about the importance of action. And I realized that the fear of imperfection was preventing me from living." And you know what's interesting, Isaac? You think I changed your life that day. But how many people have you changed with your course? How many people have you inspired to start something they've been planning for years? Isaac thought. He received messages every day. People saying that their course had helped them start projects, change careers, create something new. He hadn't counted, but there were hundreds, maybe thousands. "So you didn't just learn the lesson," Takashi continued. "You passed it on, and these people will pass it on to others. That's how philosophies survive for centuries. Not because they're in books, but because they're lived and shared." "So let me ask you the same thing Takashi asked Isaac that day. What is the project you've been planning for months or years, but haven't started yet? It's that thing you think about when you're stuck in traffic, when you're taking a shower, when you're trying to sleep but can't because you keep imagining what it would be like if you finally did it. You have excuses. I know everyone does. I don't have time. I don't have money. I don't have enough knowledge. I don't have the right equipment. I'm not ready. But those aren't reasons. They're fears disguised as logic, because the truth you don't want to admit is this. You're afraid of being imperfect, afraid of doing something that isn't as good as you imagine, afraid of discovering that maybe you're not as capable as you believe you could be if you tried. So you don't try. You plan. Because in planning, you can still be perfect. In planning, all futures are possible. In planning, you don't have to face the reality of your own limitations. But what happens? Years go by. The project never gets off the ground. And one day you wake up at 40, 50, 60 years old and realize you've spent your life planning a version of yourself that never came to be. Anzuru yori ga yasushi. Doing is easier than worrying about doing. You've already spent enough energy worrying, imagining problems, anticipating failures, constructing elaborate excuses. Now use that energy to begin. Imperfect, incomplete, scary, but real. Because Isaac's life didn't change when he created the perfect plan. It changed when he recorded that first awful video. His girlfriend didn't come into his life when he wrote the perfect bio. She came into his life when he matched with his using normal photos and having an honest conversation. His course didn't take off when he designed the ideal curriculum. It grew when he posted the first imperfect lesson and started iterating. Everything that is real in Isaac's life began imperfectly, and everything that was planned to be perfect never existed. Let me recap the main points of this story. First, excessive planning is not preparation. It's disguised procrastination. If you've been planning something for months without starting, you're not preparing. You're avoiding it. Second, the anxiety of doing something is always worse than the act of doing it itself. You spend more energy worrying about it than you would doing it. Third, you don't need to be ready. You'll never be completely ready. Ready is an illusion that keeps you standing still. Start before you're ready and get ready by doing. Fourth, the first version is always bad. Always, and that's okay, because version 2.0 only exists if you make version 1.0 first. Excellence doesn't come from perfect planning. It comes from constant iteration. Fifth, imperfect action generates real feedback. Perfect planning generates zero feedback. And feedback is the only thing that truly teaches you. You learn more by doing things wrong than by planning right. Comment below, what's the first imperfect step you're going to take this week? You're going to write the first paragraph of your book. You're going to record a 5-minute video with your cell phone. You're going to send the proposal without revising it more than 10 times. You're going to open the investment account today, even without knowing everything. Be specific, be small, be imperfect, but be real. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to start. And starting isn't about taking the perfect step. It's about taking the next step, even if it's imperfect. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for your attention and your time. This means you really want to change, that you're tired of being a perpetual planner, that you want to become someone who gets things done. And if you enjoyed this video and want to continue exploring philosophies that truly transform lives, I invite you to watch one of the videos that are appearing on your screen now. You'll certainly gain valuable knowledge and perhaps finally take that first step you've been putting off. See you in the next video. And remember, doing is easier than worrying. So stop worrying and start. Be present. Walk with honor. Follow the path.